So thank you very much for having me. Thank you everybody for the invitation. I'm kind of feeling very loved at the moment. I thought I was going to come here for a very short visit, do a couple of little minor things, run some experiments with Jeff, and just go home. It didn't quite work out that way, which is kind of good. I'm actually having a good time. But what I want to talk about today is sort of very big in the world at the moment, and I'll point out why. It's trying to tie together behavioural economics and policy, how to get policy to do and maximise its outcomes. It's based on this idea called nudge. So what is a nudge? Well, technically that's nudge. And I would recommend, if you have not read it, read it. It doesn't matter whether you're an economist or not. Thaler is obviously a behavioural economist, Nobel Prize winner, but Cass Sunstein is a lawyer. So the two of them together, they don't write economics, they actually write really common sense, logical behaviour discussions about policy. So officially, this started in 2008 when the book was published, but it goes way back before that. So the whole book comes about is because Richard Thaler, when he started his research in the 1970s, came up with this long list of things that didn't seem to work, didn't seem to fit, couldn't figure out why things didn't quite work the way they seemed. And over time, he's met with numerous people with other Nobel Prize winners like Daniel Kahneman, and they started working on these ideas about behavioural economics and how they work. And the culmination was when they started realising that behavioural economics had a place in designing policy. And that's where this book really comes from. And when the book got released, it was a little bit of a slow burn. It didn't come out to a lot of fanfare to start with, but it rapidly gained a lot of traction and ended up becoming a global bestseller, which is surprising for an economist to write a book that actually people read. The only other one is Freakonomics, and if you haven't read that one, I'd recommend it as well. But yeah, any book written by economists generally doesn't make the bestseller list. Anyway. But think about this argument. This is where they sort of start the book, and this is where I really like to start the idea behind nudging. So imagine that you are running a cafeteria. You're in charge of a school cafeteria. Now, you've got whole heaps of menu items. You've got main meals, you've got sweets, snacks, you've got fruit and vegetables, you've got a whole range of things that you could possibly put out. How do you put them out? How do you arrange this food? You've got multiple options. Obviously, it's rather large. The more food you have, the more possible combinations and permutations you would have of the way that you could put the food out. So think about what you could do. So the first thing is you could actually arrange the food in such a way that you would think that the students would be made best off. All things being considered, and say, well, I put it this order, they'll pick it a certain way, they'll be good. Second choice is you just go, you know what, I'm just going to stick it anywhere. Wherever I like, I'm going to randomly allocate food anywhere on the table, doesn't really matter. The other option is you try and put some thought in and say, well, if I was the student and I was walking up to this counter, what would I want to see where? So you try and mimic what the student would want to see as their preference choice. That's another option. The other option, of course, is something that no one in this room will engage in, which is basically trying to maximise bribes. I'm going to put the food up front where all the people are going to buy and get me the maximum amount of payoffs from all the companies that I'm buying the food from. The other option is just to be a pure, straight-out business person and say, I'm going to maximise profits. Now, there's obviously heaps of other options, but these kind of sum up most of the variations you can kind of come up with. Now, think about this. So option one is obviously the best for students. It has obviously appeal. So you say, okay, I know that if I do it this way, it'll be best for the students, but it's also the most intrusive. You're basically saying, I know what's best, this is what I'm going to give you, deal with it. Excuse me. The second option is a randomization. Now that's pretty fair. You're not helping anybody, you're not favouring anybody, you're just going, however it ends up is however it ends up. It's pretty fair, but it could have resulted in a rather large problem. Given that you have a large number of schools under your control and a large possibility of many different variations of randomness, some schools are going to end up with very bad diets. Other schools are going to end up with great diets. And that's part of the problem with the randomization process. You don't really know what you're going to get. Option three is you actually can mimic the preferences of the students. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to give you the food in orders that you would normally pick them. And that's great. And it's probably the most neutral. Think about how many students go to a high school. And I'm going to try and mimic a couple of hundred preferences. It's almost impossible. There's no way you could make one ordering of food that would suit that many people at the same time. So look, while it's nice, really, really impossible. Now option 4 is quite nice. You want to maximise your bribes. Now that's nice if you like the bribes, doesn't help the kids. So you're happy, not so much good for the kids. Option 5 is pretty much the same boat. Yeah, you're making a lot of money and you're doing the right thing by the cafeteria, but you're really not doing the right thing by the kids. So as much as it's very paternalistic, number 1 ends up being pretty much the best option. It's the one set of choices that we could possibly put out that would result in the best outcome. Now this process in the book is what Thaler and Sunstein call choice architecture, where the design of a decision is made. You actually sit down and think your way through how these choices will be made. You think about how the options will be presented to people, and you intentionally design these choices in a way that will actually make a positive outcome. And these are made every day. Like people sort of go, oh, that's a really heavy duty, only governments make these things. No, these things happen every day. And the worst part about this is they're made so regularly, most people don't know that you're actually a choice architect. So think about these arguments like deciding on what order on a voting ballot that the names are going to go. That's a choice. And we all know from straight outright that voting behaviour, whoever's in the first box has a huge advantage because most people are lazy, they just tick the first box. So if you're randomising the order, that's the one thing. If you're actually choosing the order, you're giving someone a preference, you're giving someone an advantage. If you're a professional, you're a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, someone says to you, what are my options? The order you give them the options will determine how they present them. You know, I've got these 5 other options. Oh, and I've got this life-saving surgery, which will probably save your life, but don't worry about that one. I've given you 5 other choices. So if you don't, depending on the order that you present them, has a big impact on the way they perceive them. Describing your educational choices for your child. You could go to university, or this university, or this university, or this university, or you can get a job. Depending on how you phrase those options will clearly send a signal about the importance of those options. And the big problem is it happens generally without a lot of planning and without a lot of thought, and that's truly the problem. There's architecture happening, but no one's at the wheel. No design thought is going into this process. Now, this is part of the critical problem. There is no such thing as a neutral design. Every single set of options that you put in front of somebody, if you manipulate it, you will change the outcome in some way. It could be really minor, it could be really hard to distinguish the outcome, or it could be a massive outcome. Now, the idea that every little thing matters is kind of cool. Now, this is a great example, and one of my favourite examples out of the book. Toilet, urinal, fly. What's the relationship? Well, apparently, and I'm not going to say that I know this for certain, but apparently, men don't pay a lot of attention at the urinal. I mean, I can understand, you're standing there, you've got a heap of time on your hand, it's like, let me think, what am I doing? I'm going to look over here for a while. Yep, so we pay a lot of attention. And apparently that means our aim is somewhat random. So the airport cleaning staff at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam decided they were sick of kind of cleaning up the randomness and decided to try and run an experiment. They wanted to actually say, can we give our customers something to focus on? So what they did was literally etch a little fly on the back of the urinal. Right, that's meaningless, right? Should make no difference whatsoever. A simple little tiny fly on the back of a urinal, who cares? I mean, they're not telling anybody what to do, but they changed the spillage rate by 80%. A fly. Obviously, guys have got nothing better to do. But that's the point. A simple, tiny thing that in the right place at the right time gathers attention, focuses target, changes behaviour. That is what they're talking about. A very simple choice made a very large behavioural outcome. Now this insight that everything matters is really empowering. It means that everything in a decision process is important. But it's also kind of scary. That means everything is important. Which means that everything you do in the architecture is important. The way that you frame it is important. The order you put, everything's important. Which is great and kind of scary. But it's important to realize that you will never, ever build the perfect outcome, the perfect system. It doesn't exist. Why? Have a look around you. Every person in this room is exactly the same, right? You all make exactly the same options? Does that dress exactly the same? Yeah, that's the problem. No one system will account for every single set of preferences or every single choice. It makes sense. Otherwise it'd be a really bad, boring world. But it is possible to design a system that will have major beneficial effects without being perfect. So we're talking about maximizing the outcome, maximizing the beneficial change of decisions is what we're looking for. So if you're looking for a perfect decision, it's not going to happen. Go for the maximum. Conversely, bad design also happens. So if you don't pay attention, if you don't know what you're doing, and you do make a decision, and you do design something, you can get the worst possible outcome. Ones that you didn't mean, but happened anyway. Now, you may not know this, but the wonderful dual flush system in your toilets. Yes, I've got a lot of toilet humor going on here today. I'm going to comment what I say. I'm here all week. Okay. The dual flush system was designed to save water. Great idea, okay? 2 different buttons, choose one. Now, this is the problem with understanding the system. What does the big button represent? Is it the most commonly used flush, that is the low water option? Or is it the larger flush that uses the most water? Now, let's have a show of hands. Put your hand up if you believe that is the most commonly used flush. Who believes the big button is the most commonly used flush? Come on, you can do it. Don't make me come up there, I will take names. Okay. Who thinks it's B, that it's the larger flush, the most amount of water? Okay, so it's a bit of a split going, I'm not sure, I have no idea, I just press a button, it's fine. There's 2 buttons, I press both. That's it. Look at the picture. What do you think's happening? Where's all the wear on the big button? This is a problem. So we might expect a couple of things here. We could expect that the small button is associated with the small flush. That's one bit of intuition. However, we might also associate the big button is the most used option flush. We have 2 choices here, both equally likely to be true. There's no natural or internal consistency here. We don't automatically go, oh, I know what that button means. This was a bad design. Great idea, badly executed. And I'm pretty sure that the designers of this didn't sit back and go, oh, look, we're just going to do this, and we've thought a lot about it. In their head, they probably had a perfect image going, oh, of course the big button means this. Everybody thinks like that, right? And that's part of the problem, is when you start projecting your internalized beliefs to everybody else, you hope like everybody else thinks like you, and if they don't, we have a problem. But you will see what's going to happen next. You walk into the toilet, and you look at it and go, I don't know which one's which, but everybody's pressing that button, so I'm using that one. It's hurting behavior. It's more behavioralism. If you don't know what to do, you see what everybody else does. Even if it's wrong, if everybody else is doing it, must be the right choice. Which completely failed the whole point of designing a dual flush system. So you might as well get rid of the other button now because no one's going to press it. Unless of course you're like me and you want to experiment with buttons going, okay, which one's which? And even then you forget, because if you go to a different country, it's, oh, is it the same? You never know. I never know. Then I also want to see which way the water goes now. Is it true, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere? I'm going to check. I watched too many episodes of The Simpsons not to check. Okay. A key element of this is you don't want to force people into a decision. So the key element of nudging and the key element of this book is libertarian paternalism. Now, most people would go, that's kind of oxymoron, that's a stupid statement, you can't have both. You can. So the point they're trying to make here is that people should be free to choose. They should not be removed of choice. It always should be the individual's choice to choose what they want to do. You're trying to help them make that choice. But what you are trying to do is to help them make them better off as judged by themselves. They're the ones who are judging which of these choices will make me better off. Your role in this choice architecture is to present it in a way that will make them better off, but they still get the choice. That's important. So what? If individuals want to smoke, eat lots of candy, fail to save for retirement, all the things that are really healthy, drink too much alcohol, don't join a healthcare plan, don't go to the gym, yeah, basically my life. All of those things that I know I'm doing wrong, a nudge would say, look, I'm not going to make you do it, but I'm going to give you some options, and I'm going to try and nudge you in the direction to do the right thing. But it's your choice. Just don't come crying to us in 30 years' time when you're huge, fat, overweight, you've got a insulin dependency problem. Okay. What we do try and do as a libertarian paternalist is track choices and try and implement some of those choice architectures. Say, well, if people are making this choice and it's bad for them, can we present it in a way that changes their choice? Can we change the order? Can we change? What can we do to fix the problem? So we start to anticipate some of the choices that individuals are likely to make and design a system that will work around that problem. Okay, that's not the train of thought for a second. You definitely don't forbid or remove options. All those things are still on the table. They still have choices. They're still there. You're not removing or forbidding a choice. You're just representing it in a way that makes more sense. A way that will go, you know what, I wouldn't have chosen that before, but now that's a good idea. I think I'm going to do this. You haven't stopped them, you haven't forced them. And that's the most important part. So, choice architects nudge individuals. They only count as a true nudge, as the authors point out, if they're easy and cheap to avoid. If you penalize a user from making a wrong choice, that's not a nudge. That's punishment. So you want to just present it in a way that they freely choose the alternative. If you're penalizing them, it's no longer considered a nudge. That's really important. They still have the right to choose to do the wrong thing. Everybody has that right. And that's one of the things I usually run up as against when I start talking about this idea of choice architecture. People start to go, oh, you're evil. You're forcing people to do things. You're forcing people to go to the gym. I think, no, I'm not. Jeez, I'm not forcing myself to go to the gym. If anybody needs to be nudged to go to the gym, it's going to be me. It doesn't work like me. I know what I'm looking for. No, that's not the point. I don't force anybody to do anything. I just try and nudge. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind of. This is kind of where behavioural economics comes in. So we've said, okay, look, we've got choices. We know that we pick the choices that we have. Excuse me. Outstanding. We have choices. We know they have choices. How do we know what they're going to choose? This is where behavioural comes in, especially behavioural economics being the new sexy thing and me being a behavioural economist, not being at all biased. And the last couple of Nobel Prize winners in economics being the behaviouralists have nothing to do with it either. Okay, so think about this argument. Homo economicus has been the rational model in economics forever. You know, we're rational, we always make the right choice. We always maximise our outcomes. We want to know exactly what choices are in front of me. I can measure each one of them. I can say that's worth 6, that's worth 3, that's worth 10. I'm taking the 10. That's what the rational maximizer will do every time. They know what's going to happen. They know the choice. They know what's better off. Which is why no one in the world is obese, right? Obesity rates have tripled since 1980 in all Western countries. And there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that obesity leads to early death, right? It's like smoking. Everybody knows that smoking leads to early premature death. Jeff. Just saying. Does anybody stop smoking because of this? It's not the information. You can't honestly say no one is short of information. So it's not that. So something is going on here. They know they're making the wrong choice, but they still do it. Jeff. Okay. So it's difficult to believe that people are intentionally going down the store and saying, look, I want a packet of cigarettes. No, give me the good ones. Give me the ones that make me die really fast. No, not the light ones. Those ones with the black packet with the skull and crossbones, give me those ones. I want the good ones. Nobody really does it. They smoke because they enjoy it. I'm an ex-smoker, which makes me the worst person in the world. I've quit, which means I've got every little fact, the worst facts in history. I just dig them out and just give people crap. Okay. Now, while it might be impossible, as I said earlier, to ensure that everybody eats healthy, or everybody quits smoking, or everybody does the right thing, but you also got to remember, not everybody's doing the wrong thing. Not everybody is overweight. Not everybody is not going to the gym. So if you're trying to create a system which will capture every single person, you've already got a problem because not everybody needs it. But what is true of dieting is true for everything else. Smoking, drinking, all other bad behaviour that is bad for their health. They're not, you can't honestly say that they're making these choices in their best interest. They're not making these choices for their whole well-being, which means something's going wrong with the choice structure. Something is going wrong that is making it easy to choose one thing and not choose the other. Okay, we know this is true because people pay a fortune to other people to try and stop them from doing it. They pay a fortune for personal trainers, gym memberships, life coaches. They pay a lot of money. Someone say, hey, I'm trying to light a cigarette, smack me. It works. But they know that something's going on. They have to pay money to do this. So obviously it's something they want internally, but the choice structure is something they just do it anyway. So what am I saying basically? Well, humans make mistakes. We do. We kind of suck at it. We have a lot of biases. We make a lot of really silly mistakes. But overly optimistic. Now, I want everybody to answer this truthfully. Put your hand up if you believe you are in the top 50% of drivers. Go on, honestly, they're like, I don't put my hand up. Go on. Who thinks they're one of the best drivers? On the roads, driving around here, do you believe you're in the top 50% of drivers? Yeah, no one's going to do it. He's going to make fun of it, no. And it's true, yeah. When I get an honest audience, and usually well and truly over half the room puts their hand up. Usually about 60 to 70% go, yeah, I'm in the top 50% of drivers. 70 to 80% of people put their hand up saying, I'm in the top 50% of drivers. Really? 80% of you are in the top 50%. This is going to work well. We're overly optimistic. We believe we have better abilities or better skills or better whatever it is than the norm. That's a problem. If we're overconfident, we go, yeah, I can quit next working any time I want. I can go to the gym any day I want. I'm just choosing not to. For 30 years. I'm consistent. We're present bias. We're status quo bias. We have confirmation bias. We're loss averse. We have inequality aversion. We're endowment effects. We have temporal biases. Would you rather have $100 right now or $120 in a week? Everybody goes, oh, $100 right now. I don't trust you. True. The other problem is you go $120, I don't want to wait a week for extra $20, I'd rather $100 right now. We discount the future very heavily. We have different mental accounting systems. We put money in different mental accounts. So some money is really easy to spend, other money is not. We have dual system thinking. Some of them we use heuristics for really fast process thinking, and other ones we take a long time to slowly think about things. And many, many other options. We have a lot of different flaws that we make, a lot of mistakes we make. We are human. But basically this leads us to making poor choices, which is fine. One of the big problems is our myopia. It results in us not making decisions. It results in outcomes, and whatever the status quo is, whatever the current situation is, we leave it as it is. So things like emergency plans, or pre-organising funeral requests, or retirement plans, whatever we currently have, that's fine, just leave it. I don't want to have to change anything. But I'll talk about that at the end. So these are part of the problems. We know we have these problems. We know that we fail to think these things through. There are many things that we could do that would improve our well-being, but we actively choose not to do them. I know all these things I could do, but I don't. This is where the choice architecture comes in and says, well, okay, I know these people make these problems. I know that they're going to be biased on their decision. I know they're not going to look at it in the most possible, neutral possible way. I need to reframe this decision in a way that they will change their attitude. They will change their choice. And hopefully they'll be better off because of that. We identify the barriers that are in their way. What is stopping this person from going to the gym? What is stopping this person from choosing or opting for a better product? Whether it be rice, whether it be life insurance, healthcare, what is stopping them from doing the thing that will make them better off? And that's what we want to know. We want to find out what the barrier is and either remove it or find a way around it. Can we offer a choice set in a different way that will help people move these choices around? Again, remember, this does not mean removing options. It does not say, okay, look, I know smoking is bad for you and you're not going to quit, so I'm going to ban all smoking, I'm going to make it illegal. That's not a nudge. It's making it your choice. You can still choose to smoke, but I'm going to do it in such a way that you will choose not to. I'm going to make so you have all these possible choices of activities or things that you're going to do with your property or your land or your life, and say, okay, I'm going to give you the choices, I'm going to present them in a way that you will maximize the one that you should and leave the ones alone that you currently are doing. That's kind of the point. Okay. So clearly, understanding how humans make decisions lays really at the core of a nudge. You really need to understand what is making this person make the decision that they're currently doing. Why are they not doing this, or why are they doing this? So what you really need to understand is the behavioural aspects. So you need to in fact understand how to leverage their heuristics, leverage the failure of their thought. If you know they're overconfident, you can use that. If you know they're unbelievably lazy, you can use that. You can figure out a way to say, okay, what is the problem with the majority of people getting out of this situation? Okay, how do I use that? How do I make a policy in such a way that will take that into advantage and flip it around for them? Again, what I state, this is not a one-size-fits-all policy. It's not a, if I make this one policy twist, everybody's solved. No. This is not the way it works. Remember the starting argument. Look at all the people in this room. Everybody's different. If I make a single policy nudge, I may get some of you, or a large majority of you. But chances are I will not get all of you. That one nudge may work fantastically well, but in another instance it may actually do the reverse. So this is the level where you really need to understand the behavioural insights behind doing this. When you think about, okay, I'm going to push this lever over here, I know that these people are overconfident, so I'm going to push this button. Conversely, if you think that if I push this button because they're overconfident, what's it going to do to people that are underconfident? The land. That could be a problem. So you've got to design it in such a way as, yes, I'm going to target one group and not get everybody generally. You need to be really specific and careful about the way you think about this. Not everybody needs to be nudged, and not everybody will respond to a nudge in the same way. So some people may be acting already fairly in their best interest. Not completely, but mostly. You don't need a sledgehammer, you need a little tap. Other people are so far from being healthy, they need a front-end loader to come in and drive them to the gym and go, you need to go to the gym. You need to operate differently for different groups of people. And you need to think about that. It's part of your decision making as a choice architect. Okay. So, when do we need a nudge? So, Thaler and Sunstein, the authors, point out that people need nudges for decisions of which are difficult and rare, for which they do not get a prompt feedback, and when they have trouble translating aspects of the situation into terms that can be easily understood. And they list these following times. So benefits now and costs later. Now this is one of our temporal problems that I put up earlier. We do this a lot in Australia. I don't know if Afterpay is here, but in Australia, this thing, product called Afterpay is creating a lot of havoc. Which is great if you're a teenager. I get the product now and I get to pay for it later. Fantastic, it's like credit. Except it's not called credit, it's called Afterpay. So because there's no link with money anymore, I just keep on doing it. I keep on having to pay for it later, and the bill turns up. I can't afford this. We have a benefit problem, we have a self-control problem. We all want the product now. We don't want to have to pay for it now. That's a problem. So when you have this situation, you really need to try and nudge someone away from, give me the benefit now, I'll worry about the cost later. It's a problem. The degree of difficulty, I'll get to that one in a minute. Infrequency, how frequently do you have to make this decision? If you're planting crop running once a year, that's easy. You pick your seed once a year. If you're making a decision every day on what to do, you've got to be very, very frequent with that decision. So the frequency of the decision is going to make a big difference on how well you understand it and how much information you have. The lack of feedback. If the only time you get feedback is after it fails or succeeds, it's kind of late. So the lack of feedback causes big problems. And unclear preferences is a huge one. Now this is a problem for rational people, because we're not rational. We don't have all of the preferences at hand. We don't know everything. We don't have all the choices. I don't know if I'm going to prefer the Ferrari over the Minardi. You know, I'll find that out when I buy both, and I'll drive both, and I'll see which one I really like, and I'll trash the other one, because I'm going to have so much money I can do that. It's never going to happen. But I don't know what my preference is yet. So, I'm not going to pronounce this name, so et al. These guys point out that any form of policy intervention will impose a criterion against someone's will. Now this is important to remember. Governments don't like this statement, but it's true. Every single policy that's ever been made is imposing something against someone's will at some stage. Otherwise we'd all put our hand up and go, yay, taxes, love it. Tax me more. Oh wait, that's my class, if I say that. But it's true. Every policy that we make will have some form of problem. It will inconvenience someone. It will make someone unhappy. It will take something from someone that they don't like. It's always going to be the case. You can't get around this. But if we're going to look at a democratic system and we're going to try and do the right thing by people, we need to make sure that it's transparent. And the political system, as it comes up and says, okay, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And you want to do it based on evidence. The number of times I've seen people, and I've actually had this at my own university, it drives me insane. People go, oh, we've got this new teaching style, we're going to go this direction. Well, what evidence you got? Oh, none, but I've got a good gut feeling. Oh, yeah. That turned out really well for us. How many times have you heard it from your friends? Oh, look, don't worry, I can skate on the top of my car. I've got a good gut feeling that I can do this. No, I can drink the whole bottle of tequila. It's fine. I've got a gut feeling. I can do this. See you tomorrow. No, we don't. If you don't base it on evidence, you end up with really dodgy decisions. So overt and explicit coercion by nudges is arguably better than doing it in the dark. I'm not saying it's the best choice, but it's better than actually the government doing it behind closed doors, never letting anybody know why they're doing it. So I would much rather it be up front. So in other words, forcing someone to do an action you think is in their best interest is not a nudge. It is what they choose to do based on what they think is in their best interest. Now, I'm not saying, now what most you've heard me say is, oh no, we've got to leave it up to the individual to make the choice. That's not what I said. They've got to make the decision on what they think is in their best interest. What's the missing part? Them understanding what is in their best interest. Them being provided the information or the choices in a way such that they will realise what's in their best interest. This is the big thing about nudging is, how do I get these people to understand the differences between the choice they're currently making and the choice that we think will make them better off? We need to provide them with a better mechanism, a better set of choices, a better set of tools, maybe more information. It could be a whole range of things. But that's the point. They will make that choice in their own best interest once they receive the nudge. You're not forcing them, you're helping them. This is where we get to the fun part. Let's go, okay. How do we go about nudging and how do we know what will work and what does not? Well, there's really two ways of doing this. Now the first way is the really easy way. You just sit back with a few loose ideas and go, you know what, I've got a gut feeling this is going to work. And go implement the policy. I think it's called government. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's an absolute disaster, and sometimes it's not. If you have some behavioural insight, it's better than having none at all, but it's pretty ad hoc. It's just making policy on the fly with no real insight, not a great idea. The second is a much more scientific approach, which I'm hoping that we're going to implement. So there's got a nice way of thinking about this. So Fishoff and Eggers think about this idea of outlining a policy to support behavioural research. So the first thing is a normative analysis. So identifying and using consolidated theory and evidence and the possible outcomes of some choice of the decision makers and value them. What are they worth? What are they doing? How are they valuing these choices? How do we determine that? Then, okay, go off, get data. I'm an economist, it's always about the data. Go and get the data, get your hands dirty, what's going on. Find out, using experiments, using empirical data, using field data, whatever you can get your hands on, find out what's actually happening. Then you figure out, okay, this would be the thing that would be best off. This is what they're doing. What's the gap? How do we figure out that gap? What's the size of the gap? What needs to be solved? Characterize the gap between those two behaviours. Sounds nice in a really sort of broad context. So the London Economics Group, they basically deal in retail finance. And they've sort of come up with this very clear process, which is 3 steps. Start with a laboratory experiment. So in a laboratory controlled experiment, you control everything except one decision. You control the environment, you control the money, you control everything. But what it does get, it's artificial, but what it does give you is a perfect world to play with. Once you get that, you can identify which specific things you can tweak to change people's behaviour. Then you go to a bigger audience. You say, okay, take it out of the lab, let's go to the bigger world. Some people call it field experiments. I'm more of a fan of field experiments than online, but this is what the book talks about, so we'll go to that. Online experiments means you open the doors up to a lot more people, and you can start looking at regional differences, racial differences, gender differences, much more of in a real world kind of environment, which is why I tend to go to the field. Then you get to the third step, which is the randomized control trials. This is where the real stuff comes in, where you say, okay, I think I've got a policy implementation, I think I know what's going to happen, I've tried it in the lab, I've found out what thing I want to flip, I've tried it online, I've figured out there's a few variations I can work with, and then you want to go out to the real world and say, right, can we do this? That's where the rubber meets the road, and you go, yes, this works, or man, we waste a lot of money. Hopefully, the first two will eliminate the problem of the third, which is wasting the money. If you know what you're doing and you figure it out in the lab, by the time you get to the real world, all you're really looking for is how big of an effect did we get. So the randomization basically gives you the chance for a nice clean assessment of what happens in the wild. And every policy you ever make, once it gets out in the real world, it's kind of out of your hands. That's when you start going, oh, didn't think about that. Oops. At its core, all nudges share a similar feature. Poor outcomes. People make poor choices and poor outcomes. And the individuals need to identify a policy intervention that will best help these choosers get a better outcome. And this is the exact point where behavioural economics really kicks in. The neoclassical models, which I talked about earlier, which is rational behaviour, they always say that they make choices in their best, always make choices in their best interest. They always maximise their outcomes. They always know exactly what choice to make. But we know that's not true. Otherwise, behavioural economics wouldn't exist. But what behavioural economics does do is go, okay, how do we explain the difference between the perfect choice and what they're actually doing? Now that's where we help the policy nudge. We need to identify the thing that they're choosing, the reason they're choosing, the reason they're not choosing something, to get us to shift. To shift their behaviour. So just in case you've been living under a rock for the last couple of decades, behavioural economics nudging, it's a thing, okay? It's a really big thing. So big, in fact, that if you would have asked someone 20 years ago about behavioural economics, the only people that would have answered you would have been a couple of economists, and they would have laughed at you and go, don't be an idiot, don't waste your time. It's just this group of fringe heretics doing some weird stuff. I think they're sacrificing goats out on the lawn. Who knows what they're doing, but it's weird. That's changed. We got organisations like the OECD, the European Union, the World Bank, the United Nations, and you can't see the names, but every single list there is an organisation or a government using behavioural insights and nudging policy to change their government policy. So not many is what I'm saying. But the point I will make is there's a gap. Can anybody see where there's a huge gap in adoption? Southeast Asia. There's two places that are basically on top of it. Singapore and Japan, that's it. Which is a problem for me. Which is part of the reason I'm here. The whole world has jumped on this so furiously and so fast, realising that this is such a good thing, a good way of making people better off without making damage to people, that they've jumped all over it. Except for here. Here is a way that we can make better decisions. We can help people, farmers, builders, anybody make better decisions. We can help them be better off in their own right. Not me telling them that they're going to be better off. Not me holding a gun to their head saying, you will be better off, trust me. This is what we do. We make them better off through their own decisions. Now, not only is this taken off in government, universities are going crazy over this as well. So think about all those organisations that have people working for them. Where are they getting people from? Universities. So most modern universities, most top-tier universities, either have behavioural labs, nudging units, they have behavioural psychology, decision sciences, they have these massive units, they're pouring money into it. Because why? Government and industry wants graduates. A couple of years ago, Warwick School is a very big behavioural school in the UK. They come up with this idea to run what they call nudgeathons, to try and bring government and organisations to the university and the students and faculty and say, give us an idea, give us a problem, and we'll see if we can solve it. It was so successful, this is all over the place now, so you can run it everywhere. We had a couple in recent years in Australia, so that we only just got on board, so yeah, we're also kind of lagging behind as well. But in the last 2 years, we've had these two questions, which is how do we get more people to volunteer, specifically the younger people between 18 and 35, because they identified that this group basically dropped to 0 for volunteering. Now, what are we doing wrong? How do we fix this? How do we nudge these people to volunteer their time? How do we nudge them into doing something better for the society and themselves? And last year we started to adopt this idea of open banking and consumer digital rights, which most people don't want. So they say, well, how do we turn this around? How do we pose this in a way that people will go, you know what, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should opt this in. Now, I'm just going to say, Jeff, our team captain last year, so we went up against some of the best universities in Australia. With the top 8 universities in Australia, which are, well, most of them are in the top 100, 150 universities in the world. We finished 5th, thanks to our captain here. Give him a round of applause. He's come into the university, he's adopted behavioural economics, he's kicking out butt behind, kicking stuff. Told us it's at some stage. I tried. But this is what you can do. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It doesn't take the world to suddenly have to shift to understand this. You get into behaviouralism, you start to understand what people think and why they make decisions, and you can start getting into this idea of how do we make policy? How can we fix policy? So we have choice problems. What are some of the problems we face? Well, we already know the biggest one. People make mistakes. And behavioural studies, they are fairly predictable mistakes. They make the same mistakes repeatedly. There's a great book, if you ever get around to it, called Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. It's a great book. And it basically points out that people, you go, that's a stupid thing to do. Yes, but I do it every week. The same thing every week, over and over and over. I'm very predictable in the mistakes I make. It's true. It's being human. But the point behind nudging is you don't want to punish people overly for making a wrong choice. So you want to design a system such that you don't want to say, look, I'm not going to take away your choices, but I'm also not going to punish you if you take the wrong choice. That makes it very difficult. The other thing that people suffer from is the lack of feedback. Being a student, I can tell you this is one of my pet hates when I was a student. I never understood where I went wrong. I had to go bang on my professor's door and go, where did I make a mistake? Come on, tell me where I made a mistake. Yes, I got 99%. Where did I make a mistake? Used to upset me. But it's true, we make mistakes. Without feedback, we'll make the same mistake. Without feedback, we make the same mistakes over and over and over and over. So we need a system that not only helps people go, yes, we're going to make a mistake, I'm not going to punish you, but I'll give you feedback and tell you where you went wrong and point out where you could have gone better. Some choices are easy. Everybody knows what flavour ice cream they like. Yeah? Okay, now explain to me why. Yeah, think about one for a while. It's a killer. Because chocolate tastes better than strawberry. Why? Because it does. Why? It's like talking to a 3-year-old. Why? Yeah, some choices are easy, some are hard. If I give you 10 medical treatments that will save your life, and there's different ratings, and you go, pick one. Okay, I'm not an expert at this, I don't know how to do this. Some choices are hard, some choices are easy. The complexity of the problems are an issue when you're making choices. If you make the choices more complex, it's going to be harder to come up with an answer. If you make the choices easier to understand, you end up with easier, better outcomes. Having nested choices is a problem. I choose this, then this, then this, then this, I end up with this outcome. If I choose this, then this, then this, then this, but make one change, I fail. What? That's a problem. Nested choices are really complicated, and it's hard for people to follow. But even faced with simple choices, that's one of those days. People make mistakes. We use heuristics. We're really good at this. We make snap decisions. We have these great heuristics, and when the choices are simple, they work really well. When they're complicated, they screw up. And that's great, because heuristics generally come about from danger. Oh, what's that noise behind me? It's a serial killer. Let me think about it. Should I run? Yep, I should have run. It's too late then. You want to make that choice straight away. You don't want to hang around. Heuristics can be very useful. It's a bit of a problem when it's your girlfriend sneaking up to give you a hug and suddenly you freak out and start punching you. Oh, sorry, heuristic, not my fault. Okay. Incentives. Now, this is the point where I want to point out that I am not a heretic. I am not burning economics at the cross. I am not doing anything completely evil. I'm not sacrificing a goat or anything. We still hold to nearly all economic theories. Incentives matter. We know they matter. And they matter so much that we need to think about the process. Who pays? Who chooses? Who uses? Who profits? Now, if they're all the same person, this is not a problem. But when they're not the same person, this is where we go into really big problems. And a big example of this is the US health system. It is fractured in such a way that, look at the bottom here, the patient pays and uses their health insurance, but it is the doctor that chooses the patient care and benefits from that choice. The insurance company benefits from the income coming from the patient paying for insurance, and they pay the doctor, but they choose what they're going to cover or not. Now, if you can figure out that chain of events, you're doing better than most people in the US. The people who are benefiting are not choosing. The people who are choosing are benefiting, but benefiting from a third party. This is a broken system, and trying to figure out how to fix it is causing grief. When you break the incentive and payment structures, it's very hard to make a decision. What's in your best interest? I don't know. I'm not the one who's choosing the treatment, but I am the one who's choosing to pay, but I'm not the one who's choosing to cover. That's a problem. Now, that's what I talked about earlier. I want to finish on this. The power of defaults. Now, inherently, people are lazy, me included. I love this. Default options are king. Take the path of least resistance, what takes the least amount of effort. And if it's the default option, hey, that makes my life easy. Behaviourally, we sort of talk chalk this up to inertia, or I've been doing this for years, I'm not going to change my mind. I've already got this insurance, I don't really care if it's terrible, but I've already got it. I've been using the same seed or same rice product for 50 years, why would I change now? That's a problem. The default option is, I don't make a decision, therefore that is my decision. I'm really good at that. It's not because people are stupid. Think about how many decisions you make every day. I think I read an estimate, it's about 10,000 decisions a day people make. And one of them is going to be really, really important, and 9,900 of them are going to be, what sock am I going to wear today? Is this going to go on my left foot or my right foot? Those sort of decisions don't matter. If I change my form of rice, or the rice that I'm using or growing, I can actually double my output and make my family eat a lot better and be richer. Is that a decision I actually want to stop and think about? Probably. Is there a default option? Yeah, what I was doing last year. Do you want them to stop and think about that? Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. The default option is a problem. And trying to get people to stop using the default option is a problem. So historically, the default option has caused many, many problems. Mainly because of choice architecture. At the time when we first started making these default options, there was no architecture. It was just, hey, we'll make a default option, we'll leave it as it is, it's fine. No one cared. All of a sudden they realized, hang on, these default options are getting a lot of power. Why is everybody choosing the default option? Because we're lazy. That's why. Organ donors are a great example of this. So organ donation, around the world, organ donation is so low, it's critical. And don't get to do surveys year after year and say, would you be willing to be an organ donor? Yes. Are you an organ donor? No. Hang on. You just said you'd love to be. Yeah. Why aren't you? Stuff happens. Decisions. Yeah. That's the problem, is people want to opt in, but they have to opt in. They have to do something to become an organ donor. The default decision is do nothing, and they are not an organ donor. Flip it. You make the default decision, you are an organ donor. If you want to get out, you can choose to get out. That's fine. So all individuals are classified as organ donors unless they choose otherwise. That's the power of default. You go from 5% of the population being an organ donor to 100% of the population being an organ donor, and the ones that don't want to be, choose to be out. Nothing's changed. But what does happen is the rate of people staying in organ donation goes through the roof. Very few people opt out, because we already know from surveys most people want to be organ donors. But once you make them an organ donor, they go, that's fine, I don't have to do anything. It's fantastic. It is important to note that this one little flip, this little tiny change, none of the individual's choices have been removed. None of them have been impeded. Nothing in the system has changed. All you've done is flipped the switch. They still have to take an action to change their mind, whether it's to opt in or opt out. They still make one choice. They go fill out a piece of paperwork. The only difference is the outcome. They go from very low people being registered to everybody being registered. That's the power of defaults. And it works for the banking industry, health insurance, it works for all these industries where we've always thought the default as being the simplest, it's the base option, it's the who cares option. And because we've made it the who cares option, that's what the majority of people have gone with. Which means the majority of people have ended up with the worst outcome because of it. And we could always do better. So, my conclusion is this. I'm probably way over time, but that's fine. Two basic points that book really revolves around, and the whole point of nudging revolves around. There are small features that can have massive effects on behaviour. Nudges are everywhere, and even if you don't see them. Choice architecture is both good and bad. It's pervasive. It's unavoidable. You do it every day. If you have any matter of control over choice, you're a choice architect already. What happens next is up to you, how you choose. The second is that libertarian paternalism is not impossible. It's not an oxymoron. They do work together. You just need to be aware that choice architects can preserve freedom of choice while also nudging people in a direction that will improve their lives. Thank you very much for putting up with me for a very long presentation.